It was an eerie experience walking the well-trodden path and beholding the unaltered sites explored by people over 150 years ago. While we, as tourists, appreciate the history and architecture of this ghost town, those who traversed this same ground a century and a half ago grappled with fear, anxiety, exhaustion, pain, passion, excitement, love, and other emotions in this very space. Join us as we walk around what's left of the town of Thurmond in West Virginia and unveil some of these stories. Welcome to Some Stories of Mine and to the series This Happened Here. I am LT Bartek. The New River Gorge in West Virginia is ripe with murder, lost souls, and missing people, as explored in our last video. But what this place is also known for is that this region experienced one of the largest coal booms in history, bringing men and their families to Fayette County from all over the country and quite possibly the world. Because of coal mining in Thurman, men could earn 5 times what they could earn as a sharecropper out in the fields. But the financial gain was not all these folks experienced. As the area experienced a significant economic boom, families were also living in miserable conditions, basically owned by their employers, and often faced horrible tragedies. One settler by the name of Captain William Thurmond, a former Confederate captain of the Thurman Rangers in the Civil War from April 12, 1861 to April 9, 1865, was born on November 11, 1820, in Amherst County, West Virginia. He died in his home in Minden on May 14, 1910, at 89 years old. In his obituary, he was described as, I quote, gentle as a woman. He was brave and chivalrous as a knight of old. Whenever duty called him, whether as a Confederate soldier following General Lee or in his mature manhood fighting the battle of civil life in all walks of life, he was the same brave, honest, sympathetic man, a gentle Christian gentleman in every sense of the word. End of quote. Over 1,000 mourners from every walk of life and all over the country came to see him off, showing respect to a man who was known to be kind to a fault. William Thurmond migrated to Fayette County, formerly known as New River Country, as a young man with his father's family around 1845 and became one of the pioneers of the New River coal operator. In 1873, Thurmond, a 25-year-old, was commissioned to survey land in the north side of New River in the heart of New River Gorge. With no money to pay for his services, he accepted 73 acres as his pay, and in the following years, he built the town of Thurmond because he saw the need to make life better for his fellow miners. He named the town after himself, although this was not his original intent. He wanted to name the town Arbuckle, but when he asked to have a post office built there, the officials refused to use the name Arbuckle, while the name Thurmond was accepted. Thus the town by the name of Thurmond was born. Anyway, that was to come. Let's go back a little. Upon getting the land, William immediately started building. stretching along the river for more than 40 miles, was one of the most exceptional coal seams ever mined to date. He knew that coal was being transported down Arbuckle to Dunloop creeks, and trains would meet at a nearby junction on his property. He also knew that the growing coal industry would result in major amounts of money, and new families were coming in southern West Virginia for work. By 1875, there were 75 people living in the houses that he built on his land. He also constructed a church for the folks to worship at, a school for the children of his workers, a few general stores, the National Bank of Thurman, and 2 coal company offices for his miners. In 1891, Thurmond had his first hotel, which banned gambling and liquor due to Thurmond's religious beliefs. Also, because of the Town of Thurmond's central location, a Western Union office and an Adams Express Company were built there. William Thurmond was a banker and was the president of the Bank of Thurmond. He also was a large stockbroker in one of the local banking institutions. The mine and coal operations on his property made him a very rich man. His wealth was estimated to about $1 million. William Thurmond had 2 sons, Charles and Joe Thurmond. His wife died 2 years before him. In January 1873, with the completion of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway, C&O Railroad, through the New River Gorge, established a connection between the eastern and western parts of the United States at Hawks Nest in Fayette County. This railroad transformed into Thurman's main thoroughfare. By the 1880s, a dozen mines in Thurman shipped coal, attracting people seeking smokeless coal and coke. Coal was transported from various mines, including Collins and other Dunloop Creek mines, Maiden and its sibling mines on Arbuckle Creek, Nuttleburg, Kaymore, and Coal Run. The C&O facilitated the transportation of not only coal, but also derived goods for the expanding population engaging in coal mining. Fruit, furniture, clothing, and mining equipment were among the items shipped. Remarkably, Thurman handled more freight from the C&O at one point than any other depot between Richmond and Cincinnati. In the initial decade following the railroad completion, Thurman and his son transported a wagon load of produce and tobacco across the river for 20 cents. The C&O further solidified its presence by constructing a depot on Thurman's property for the Dunloop branch line and outlining plans for a bridge. Thurman also contributed to the community by constructing houses on his property, available for rent to C&O workers and their families. The railroad opened the doors to many opportunities. Along with its coal mine and the town's steam engine repair shop, the town prospered. It was ideally located, and many stopped in this established town to let off steam. Lawlessness abounded, despite William's attempt to adhere to his Baptist teaching and keep crime away. Many men arrived at the Thurmond Hotel were unaccustomed to its modest lifestyle, including a businessman named Mr. Thomas G. McGill. Seeing what most of these miners sought, entertainment and a way to relax and unwind, he constructed the Glen Hotel to cater to all their needs. The Glen Hotel was a 3-story wooden structure with a double-decker porch on 3 sides. It had 100 rooms available for rent. A night's stay at the Glen Hotel cost an average of $2.50, exceeding the typical weekly wage of a coal miner. While coal miners couldn't even feed their families, affluent coal operators used to gamble away sums larger than their workers' earnings. The Glen Hotel also provided entertainment such as dancing, prostitution, and liquor. Many patrons were drawn to the Glen for its freedom, lawlessness, and, surprisingly enough, tranquility because of its distance away from the train lines, while a stay at the Thurmond Hotel brought with it a constant squeal and breaks from the railroad noise. The draw of the Glen Hotel, owned by Thomas McGill, had bands, fine china, fresh seafood parties, and political conventions. The bottom floor had a mortuary, grocery and dry goods store, drugstore, shoe shop, furniture store, and a bank. The Glen was named the Little Monte Carlo for its liquor and gambling. The pull of gamblers, prostitutes, and drunks turned the town of Thurmond into one of the most notorious towns of its time. It even was described as hell with a river through it. With the pull of the Glen Hotel, where workers could escape their miserable lives for a few hours, drunkenness would throw caution out the window, prostitution attracted jealousy, physical abuse, and anger spurred by the desperation that a lot felt being treated unfairly by those who controlled the entire town, encompassing the residence of the workers, the establishment they frequent, and even the police force. This ownership dynamic fostered corruption, creating a situation where a minor could face dire consequences, such as being shot in the street merely for a perceived slight towards a guard, and without any inquiries being made. Workers' safety was always overlooked, primarily focusing on extracting coal from the ground. Residents of these company-owned towns would attest that the coal company wielded authority and governed every facet of the miners' lives. In 1899, fire swept through Thurmond, destroying the Thurmond Hotel, the rail depot, and many other businesses in downtown Thurmond. However, Hotel Thurmond was rebuilt in 1902, butting up against the train line, but it did boast a movie theater where Western shows were played. Commercial Row, as that strip was called in downtown Thurmond, decayed as the coal industry dwindled, and today only these three buildings have survived. Mankin Cox Building on the right was owned and operated by Mr. Mankin and his wife. They were the town's surgeons. The next building was the Goodman Kincaid Building. This was built in 1906. This was a dry goods building, and the upper section was for offices. The building was also a restaurant and a popular hangout spot. As the inscription states, this last building was the National Bank of Thurmond, which was one of two banks owned by William Thurmond. The third bank did not get off the ground. Around 1900, the vicinity of Thurmond had 26 mines. However, by 1909, the town's downturn commenced with the entry of a competition from the Virginia Railway, challenging the established dominance of the C&O Railroad. The enactment of Prohibition in 1914 led to the demise of Southside, and the Glen transformed into a mere hotel. The prosperity of both the C&O and its residents dwindled. In 1903, Captain Thurmond officially incorporated his town and outlawed the sale of liquor. In order to save his business, Thomas McGill extended the boundaries of Glen, the town he owned, to include his hotel. This extended property became known as Ballyhack, or Southside, and there they continued their lawlessness. Further setbacks occurred in 1922 when a severe fire ravaged parts of Thurmond, leaving them unreconstructed. The Glen Hotel met a tragic end through arson in 1930. During the Depression years, Thurmond's business district faced more decline. Between 1931 and 1938, notable entities like the National Bank of Thurmond, the Alma Meat Company, the New River Banking and Trust Company, and the C&P telephone district offices moved away from the town. The last major industry standing in Thurmond was the railroad, but it too lost significance in 1940 when the C&O transitioned to diesel engines, eliminating the need to stop in Thurmond for water and coal. Later, the Thurmond depot closed its doors. Today, the town is said to have a population of only 5 residents, and it is a desired location for tourists to visit and one of the locations where rafters come to enter the river. The town is still being restored as a location in the national park. This is also a stop on the ghost tours where people have said to hear weird screams, being touched by unseen hands, and lights going on and off, but you already know my thoughts on that. Before I go, you may not know this, but I love poetry, and I found one that, if you will indulge me, I would love to end with. It is a ballad of the C&O Sportsman train crash. It is a song about the brave railwaymen, spotlighting their importance in our nation's history. The wreck of the Sportsman. Far away on the banks of New River, while the deep shades of twilight hung low, in the mountains of old West Virginia, on the line of the old C&O. Down the valley the old 47 was winding her way along the stream. The drivers were rapidly pounding, while the engine was trembling with steam. Haskell firmly held the throttle. Anderson's fire glowed with red, and they thought of no danger awaiting down the line on a curve just ahead. In the dusk of a fair crimson sunset, near the path of the old Midland Trail, 'twas there that the fast-flying Sportsman was wrecked as she swung from the rail. 'Twas there in the dark shades of twilight, while the bright crimson sky was aglow, that Haskell and Anderson of the Sportsman gave their lives to the old C&O. Just west of the station called Hawk's Nest, the engine turned over the fill. The boys were found down near the river by the engine they loved, lying still. That night there were loved ones waiting in Huntington for those boys in vain, for God the supreme crew caller had called them for another train. The years full of tears may be many, and sad broken hearts ever burn, while they think of the wreck of the Sportsman and the loved ones who'll never return. Now that we have come to the end of that, I hope you found this brief history of Thurman interesting. Remember to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for next week when we will be back with another awesome story. Until then, love yourself and others. Love you. Bye.